Well, from that, we want to dive into that conversation on how do we address youth unemployment in the country. And joining me right now is Sylvia Mwangi, who works with McKinsey and Company. Many thanks for making time. And to my extreme left, we have Kevin Desai, who is the chairman of the Permanent Working Group on TVET, which means Technical and Vocational Training Institutions, joining us this afternoon. Many thanks. Well, Sylvia, of course, we've seen a number of initiatives coming through where the government is partnering with the private sector to try and address youth unemployment. Perhaps from where you sit, are we making significant progress as a country?
We are on the right path as the private sector coming together to help the government solve this youth unemployment problem in society. So we are definitely not there, but we are pulling all in the same direction and we're making significant progress there. But we needed all the stakeholders to come around the table so that we can tackle this collectively.
All right. Kevin, we've seen a number of sort of private-public partnerships coming through where corporates are willing to train students in different universities. And how has this translated into having a better transition rate where a number of young people are making it to the job market, whereas it's still a small percentage?
I think that private sector hugely benefits from enhanced productivity, innovation and efficiency. It's one of the key concerns of private sector competitiveness today in this country. And on the other hand, as you put it, there's a challenge in terms of massive unemployment at approximately 40%. But we see that the 60%, which accounts for existing productivity, innovation, efficiency, is also part and parcel of a situation in our national context that has to be addressed. The world of private sector is highly dynamic, and therefore there has to be a close link between curriculum, train-the-trainer programs, competencies, into the supply side, the actual vocational training institutions, to prepare not only for apprentice programs, but to prepare for job opportunities, so as to address issues of efficiency, of transition, efficiency in terms of enhancing productivity as quickly as possible, efficiency in terms of addressing solutions for innovation that industry so badly needs.
All right. And then Sylvia, looking at the initiatives that are so far running in the country, compared to the figures we have about, the government had a projection that they would be creating 1 million jobs per year. And from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, we see a figure of about 700,000 jobs being created annually. And of course, this is not what they would like to have. But how do we increase these numbers?
I will speak a little bit about what we are doing as Generation, right? And Generation, we see it as a two-sided problem we have with the youth unemployment. Whereas you said rightly, we have a lot of youth that is underemployed or unemployed. I mean, the statistics we have right now is about, between the ages of 20 to 29, we have about over 1 million youth who are unemployed, and 3 times that number that's actually underemployed. But given the research we have done as McKinsey, when we go to employers, we are actually finding employers saying that we can't find the talent we need. And we have gone to these youth, and a lot of them feel that they have a useless certificate that they got from college, from high school. They have a certificate, but when you go to knocking doors with employers, they are saying, you're probably not good enough in IT, or you're probably not good enough in communication. So what we've done as McKinsey, we have bridged the skills gap for the youth and the employment challenges for the employers. So we have a program, as our colleague was saying, we have a program that has designed and curated all the skills that the employers require, and we take our youth that are feeling they're disconnected and we connect them to the employers that will give them employment. So I mean, in that way, we have reduced the number of people who are sitting idle, and also we have fulfilled the employers' need.
So is it a question of the curriculum at the universities where it's too theoretical, or what's the problem with the system? Because we can't have McKinsey single-handedly solving the entire country's youth unemployment.
No, absolutely. And this is not something that as McKinsey Social Initiative, we can tackle, or as the TVET can tackle alone. This is a conversation that requires all the stakeholders to come together. And here I mean the educators, the employers, the youth themselves, and also the government. Right? The government is a key stakeholder in this, where we come, and TVET is doing a very good job at this, and the president said very clearly that it's a big initiative to get TVET to the 47 counties, where we say it's not about the theoretical education you got, it has to be more, and TVET is a very good solution. And the model we have in Generation is very similar to what we see TVET will be.
All right.
It's a combination of both technical skills, we have a behavioral skills, and also we have something we call the mindsets.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see you want to chip in, Kevin.
I think she's absolutely correct, that this requires a collaborative effort. It requires to be scaled at a national debate. We need to discuss our joint commitment as private sector, government, as well as academia, the youth, parents, to really create an ecosystem that is favorable and encourages the entire TVET platform. I also think that while the government and the Jubilee government has made tremendous progress in terms of initiating and implementing the 4 acts, the TVET Act, the Universities Act, the Science, Technology, Innovation Act, and recently the Kenya Qualifications National Framework, we're beginning to see the right kind of policy and legislation. There have been some extraordinary ambition behind some of these acts, like the TVET Act, for the first time introduces competency-based education and training. But it presupposes that 2/3 of the work will be done by private sector and 1/3 by technical institutions that would be involved in theory. So it's this next step that we have to take as a nation to work together, to dialogue and engage on 2 very specific issues. One is, of course, the transition. As she mentioned, we have 900,000 young people finishing from high school but going into a void, and 450,000 students graduating from TVET vocational institutions but not efficiently accessing jobs, livelihood or entrepreneurship. So we need to debate and dialogue and engage as a country and prioritize this issue into 2 aspects. One is this transition rate, the stigma that TVET has. Is TVET really for failures? Of course not. TVET propels nations. It's one of the most important competencies that are fundamentally capable of ensuring competitiveness, but also the transformation of different sectors. And then the second key point is, how do we create this systematic link between the private sector and academia to ensure quality and relevance of skills as efficiently as possible?
All right. And Kevin, of course, still keeping with matters TVET, you recently received about 4 billion shillings in the current financial year budget for 2016-2017. And of course, over the years, the argument has been TVETs are not well funded. Are you now properly funded?
I think that a lot more has to be done in terms of funding. There are several elements that are critical. It's not only the institution and the infrastructure within an institution, but it's also the soft skills in terms of how we manage the institutions for competency-based education and training, how we develop apprentice schemes that incentive private sector involvement. And while 4 billion is a lot of money, it's not adequate to fully transform the entire fabric of TVET institutions. Funding can be shared, a shared response. When you look at the opportunities, you see that the current infrastructure projects would require 30,000 technologists. They would require 90,000 technicians and 400,000 master tradesmen and craftsmen. This is only from one particular sector, the growing infrastructure opportunity. If structures and systems were put in place, it could incentivize infrastructure providers to be involved and share the cost. Therein lies the solution. We need to find avenues, structures, mechanisms to see how we can jointly solve the problem of funding. On the side of the local private sector, we have 12 million people in business today, informal, formal, multinationals. They too could contribute effectively to the funding gap. But quite clearly, a structured system, an ecosystem has to be put in place in order to have a shared involvement and a shared responsibility and commitment to apprentice schemes like the one she talks about, to the ability to train the trainers, to create sabbatical programs for lecturers and so on. It requires a national dialogue. And it's one of the reasons why between the 15th and 16th and the 17th of September, we're going to have a national skills conference to address some of these elemental issues, but in collaboration with the entire nation, because this requires a step that all of us come together. We have excellent prototypes like the McKinsey initiative, the Encouraging initiative, and the Generation program, but more needs to be done in terms of scaling such initiatives, a structured approach towards addressing aspects of policy as well as funding, access. How does a young person be able to finance entrance into a TVET institution, and the significance of TVET from where we stand as far as infrastructure projects all the way to unlocked potential in pastoralism, livestock opportunities, and massive agricultural opportunities that skills are demanded.
All right. And Sylvia, I'd like to get your closing thoughts on how do we accelerate the numbers. If you look at the Kenyan society, there's a lot of preference for the young people to go for the, should I say, the white-collar jobs. Many are not into the science-based courses, engineering, architecture. How do we turn around the coin?
And he said it very well. It's a very collaborative kind of environment that we need to do that, but more so it's changing the way youth think about it. It requires, what would say, is it a culture change or a mindset change where we say that 5 years old you're going to grow up being a lawyer or you're going to grow up being an accountant. But Kenya has changed, the world has changed. People need to think beyond what our parents grew up saying, this is the cream of it. And for us to propel ourselves to industrialization, which is everybody's goal as the youth and as the older people, is we need to think differently about how we can achieve our goal.
All right.
And this takes a lot of collaboration across all stakeholders.
Closing thoughts, Kevit, on how do you accelerate the numbers, and is it a question of culture change, or is it the parents that need to redirect their children to take up science-based courses?
I think that, yes, it's all of that. I think that we have to recognize that skills development in this country is not only an economic benefit, a very powerful economic opportunity to address prosperity, address our competitiveness, address our engagement throughout the region. But if we also think that these skills, whether it's from a pastoralist or an agriculturalist or a carpenter, these need to be handed down systematically as part of our culture, part of our tradition. It's a skills tradition, and it's one of the reasons why a structured approach towards addressing competency-based education and training is so vital now going forward, and it requires everyone's participation at this Hands on the Future skills event in September, which will, for the first time, bring all stakeholders together to cherish on one hand some excellent examples, but also to create the way forward and find solutions.
Many thanks. Sylvia Kamau, representing McKinsey, many thanks for having you, as well as Kevin Desai from the Permanent Working Group for the TVETs, just sharing with us some of the key insights regarding matters to do with youth unemployment in the country, indicating that there needs to be a mind shift, where more young people can take on other courses away from what they used to. Well, that ends us on that conversation, but let's take you now to Malawi.